All right, so you ready for this? We're diving deep, deep into the world of sports movies.
Sounds fun.
It is. And we're going to be using a list from the top10s.com called Top 10 Best Sports Movies of All Time. But,
Yeah.
ranking movies is totally subjective, right?
Of course.
So we're not trying to pick a winner, not at all. But it is fun to look at what makes these movies so great.
Right.
And, maybe we'll even find some hidden gems along the way.
Absolutely. And it's always interesting to see how these films, while, centered around sports,
Sure.
often touch on something deeper, reflecting like cultural trends,
Yeah.
or even offering a lens on history itself.
That's what's so cool about this genre. There's always more to this story.
Absolutely.
And speaking of iconic films, we have to talk about Rocky.
Mhm.
I mean, it's constantly at the top of best of lists.
Yeah.
And the top 10's users, no exception. They love Stallone's performance, how relatable the story is, and how emotionally powerful it is. One person even said that boxing movies in general are better choreographed than other sports films.
Mm.
What do you think? Is there something about boxing that makes it so good for movies?
There's a raw, visceral energy to boxing that really translates well on screen.
Yeah.
It's just two people, facing off in a small space where every move, every single blow is just packed with so much weight, physically, emotionally.
Yeah.
Think about how a director can use close-ups to show, the sweat, the strain, even the determination in a boxer's eyes.
Right.
That creates a level of intensity that you don't see in other sports.
It's like watching a brutal ballet.
Yeah.
Every punch tells a story. And Rocky totally gets it. You feel how much work goes into it.
Oh, for sure.
Now, the top 10's users also love the whole Rocky franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Except, well, one exception, Rocky V. I guess even the best series can have a slip-up. But it does make you think, why do some sequels work and others totally flop?
Mm.
What do you think makes a good sequel, especially for sports movies?
Sequels have to walk a fine line. They have to have what people loved about the original, but they also need something new, something fresh to make it worth watching. When a sequel just relies on nostalgia, or does the same thing over again, it's going to disappoint people who want more.
It's true. You can't just, reheat the same meal and expect people to be as excited.
Exactly.
Okay, moving on from doxing. Let's talk about Remember the Titans. It's a film that really mixes social issues with football. A lot of users think it's going to become a classic.
Yeah, I can see that.
But some people point out a few silly mistakes in the film. I wonder, what even counts as a silly mistake in a sports movie?
Mm-hmm.
Do these inaccuracies actually hurt the movie, or could they, add something to it?
It is interesting how these mistakes can sometimes make a film more appealing to some people.
Right.
It makes it feel more relatable, less perfect, and maybe even start some fun arguments with friends. But with Remember the Titans, the historical context really matters. It uses football to show the racial tensions and changes happening in America in the early 70s.
It shows how sports can reflect what's happening in society, both the good and bad. Now let's move on to Rudy, a true underdog story. This one always pulls at the heartstrings. Inspiring story, great music, and of course, Sean Astin's performance is incredible.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
One user said they'd seen it 60 times? 60.
Wow.
Why do you think these underdog stories are so powerful? Why do we love rooting for characters who beat the odds?
Well, there's something very human about rooting for the underdog, right? We all want to believe in the impossible, to see someone overcome huge challenges and achieve their dreams.
Yeah.
And Rudy is the perfect example of that. It reminds us that with enough heart and determination and maybe a little luck,
Yeah.
anything's possible.
It's the classic David and Goliath story. We love to see the little guy win. And Rudy does that perfectly. Now, how about a movie that takes us back to being a kid? The Sandlot. It's all about those summer days playing games and the friendships you make through sports. But one user asked, how is it not ranked higher than Remember the Titans?
Interesting question.
It seems like people have strong opinions about sports movies. What do you think makes a sports movie stand the test of time, become a true classic?
I think it's when a film goes beyond just the sport and talks about bigger ideas, like The Sandlot, it captures that feeling of being a kid perfectly, but Remember the Titans deals with bigger societal issues, making it resonate on different levels.
So it's not just about the sport, it's about the human experience.
Exactly. It's about the struggles we all face and how important things like unity and understanding are.
It's like these films use something familiar and exciting, like football, to help us think about bigger issues. They can entertain and make us think. Okay, Let's move on to a film that really broke boundaries, A League of Their Own. This one celebrates the women who played baseball during World War II, showing their talent, their grit, and just how tough they were.
Yeah.
This is a movie that deserves all the praise, even though there aren't many user comments about it on the top 10s. What do you think makes this film stand the test of time? Why is it so important in the world of sports movies?
Well, A League of Their Own was revolutionary for its time. It really challenged what people thought about women in sports and brought to light, a forgotten part of history.
Hmm.
It also had amazing actors and a heartwarming story that people of all ages connected with. It's still inspiring female athletes today and has paved the way for more diverse stories in sports films.
It shows that sports movies can really push for change and make us think about how we see the world. Now, how about a film that takes us to another time and place? Field of Dreams.
Mhm.
This one's got a lot of sentimental value, with users sharing their own personal stories about it. One person was even from the same town as Moonlight Graham, the guy who inspired the movie's theme of second chances. It's incredible how movies can connect with our lives like that. And who could forget that line? If you build it, he will come. What is it about sports movies that lets them tap into these bigger themes, these desires that everyone has?
Well, I think great sports movies are about more than just the game. They use the sport as a metaphor for life itself. They explore things like family, redemption, second chances, and chasing your dreams.
Hmm.
And Field of Dreams really embodies this. It's about facing the past, healing old wounds, and finding what really matters.
Yeah.
And by using baseball as the backdrop, it brings in this feeling of nostalgia and wonder that really connects with people.
It's like baseball becomes this symbol of innocence, of simpler times, and that helps us connect those deeper emotions. Okay, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about Caddyshack.
Oh, a classic.
This comedy is perfectly summed up by one user's comment, a single quote. Hey everybody, we're all gonna get laid.
That pretty much says it all, doesn't it?
It totally captures that crazy anything goes energy of the movie.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a sports comedy work? Is it finding the funny side of the sport itself, or is there more to it?
Well, I think a lot of sports comedies work because they make fun of the sport's rules and traditions while also celebrating how passionate the fans are.
Right.
And Caddyshack does that so well. It creates a world where rules are meant to be broken and having fun is way more important than winning. It's a reminder that even when things are super competitive, there's always room for laughter and not taking everything so seriously.
So it's all about embracing the craziness.
Exactly. Finding humor in the unexpected, in the crazy personalities, and all those weird things people do around these sports.
And Caddyshack definitely goes all in on that. Okay, get ready for some serious debate because our next film is Raging Bull. One user calls it the absolute best film ever, even better than Rocky. But they also admit it's not necessarily a fun watch. Someone else was furious it wasn't ranked higher. So can a film be a masterpiece, even if it's not something you'd watch over and over again? How do we make sense of these different opinions?
Raging Bull is a great example of a film that gets critical acclaim but is also really tough to watch. It's a brutal and honest portrayal of boxer Jake LaMotta, a man who's really fighting his own demons.
Yeah.
Scorsese's directing is amazing, using black and white, slow motion, and realistic fight scenes to create a powerful and disturbing experience. And De Niro's performance is phenomenal. He becomes LaMotta both physically and emotionally.
Wow.
It's a film that sticks with you long after it's over. It makes you think and maybe even do some soul searching. But it's not something you'd put on for a casual movie night.
It's a film that demands your attention. It's more than just entertainment, it's an experience. Okay, now for a movie that takes us out of the stadium and into the front office. Moneyball.
Interesting one.
This one's surprisingly quiet on the top 10s. No user comments to guide us. So tell me, what makes Moneyball special in the world of sports movies? How is it different?
What I find fascinating about Moneyball is that it's not really just about baseball.
Yeah.
It's about going against the grain, using data and analytics to shake up a system that's stuck in its ways.
Interesting.
It's about finding value where others don't, about building a winning team when everyone thinks you're crazy. This resonates with anyone who's ever felt like an outsider, like their ideas are never going to work.
I see.
It shows that thinking differently and being innovative can lead to success, even when the whole world doubts you.
It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest wins happen off the field, those quiet moments of strategy and planning. And finally, to round out the top 10, we're back to martial arts with The Karate Kid. This coming-of-age story with its training montages and Mr. Miyagi's wisdom continues to inspire people. One user highlighted the fight scenes in Miyagi's teachings, while another just said it was their all-time favorite.
Mm.
What do you think is the impact of The Karate Kid on sports movies as a whole? How did it change how we see martial arts on screen?
The Karate Kid did something amazing. It took martial arts, which people often see as aggressive and violent, and turned it into a story about discipline, self-control, and finding peace. It's not just about winning fights, it's about conquering your own fears and insecurities.
Right.
Mr. Miyagi's teachings, with their focus on balance, patience, and respect, resonated with people beyond just martial arts fans.
Yeah.
They taught life lessons anyone could use, whether they're facing challenges or trying to improve themselves. And by putting these themes into a coming-of-age story, The Karate Kid created a template for future films that wanted to explore the deeper meaning of competition.
It's amazing how it combines those philosophical ideas
Mhm.
with the excitement of martial arts. It shows that sports movies can be about so much more than just action. It really shows that sports movies can be about so much more than just, the action.
Right.
Okay, we made it through the top 10, but our journey isn't over yet.
No, not at all.
We're moving on to the newcomers and contenders, the films that are like fighting for their spot in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And first up, we have a couple that are, well, kind of quiet on the top 10s. Rocky II and Gran Turismo. No user comments to help us out here.
Interesting.
What are your first impressions of these films? Do you think they have what it takes to become classics? Or are they going to, just fade away?
It is interesting that they haven't sparked much discussion. Maybe they're still finding their audience, finding their place in the world of sports movies. Rocky Thesson, well, it's tough to follow up such a beloved film.
Yeah, it's got to be hard to capture that magic again.
Right, that surprise that made the original so special. And Gran Turismo, being based on a video game, has to figure out how to turn that interactive experience into a good story.
Yeah, video game adaptations don't always work out.
Exactly. It's hard to get the same feeling from a movie that you get from playing a game.
It's like trying to hit a moving target, right?
Exactly. You have to stay true to the game, but also tell a story that stands on its own.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk about a film that's getting people talking. Rocky IV. This one's a powerhouse in every sense. One user said it was the best sports movie ever, praising Drago, the music, and the whole Cold War setting. It's fascinating how real-world events can shape a sports movie, how they can make it more than just a story about a game. What do you think it is about Rocky IV that connects with those Cold War anxieties and makes it resonate even today?
Rocky IV came out at a very specific time when things between the U.S. and the Soviet Union were really tense. It became more than just a boxing match. It was symbolic of the conflict between these two ideologies, two ways of life. Rocky, he represented the American spirit, individualism, and fighting for what you believe in. He went up against Drago, the seemingly unbeatable force who represented, well, the perceived strength and ruthlessness of the Soviet Union. The film played on those fears, turning the boxing ring into a battleground for global dominance.
Wow, that's really interesting.
And it's interesting to see how this theme of sports as a stand-in for real-world conflicts has shown up in other movies too, like Miracle on Ice, where a group of American hockey players beat the supposedly invincible Soviet team at the Olympics.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
These stories give people a sense of release, a way to deal with the anxieties of the real world through something familiar and exciting like sports.
It's like we get to experience those high-stakes moments, those ideological battles, but in a safe space. We cheer for our side. We see good triumph over evil, even if it's just on a screen. Now, we have a few films that get mentioned, but not a lot of discussion. The Natural, The Longest Yard, and Rocky III. One user even compared Rocky III to Rocky III, saying that it's, not as impactful, but still a good addition to the franchise. It makes me think about sequels, especially in sports movies. Why do we keep coming back for more, even if the sequels aren't as good as the originals?
Well, sequels give us a chance to go back to characters and worlds that we love, to see how they've changed and what new challenges they face.
Yeah.
In sports movies, sequels often explore ideas of legacy, redemption, and passing the torch to the next generation.
I see.
They play on our nostalgia, our desire to see what happens to familiar faces and storylines. But as we've seen with the Rocky movies, not all sequels are made equal. Some capture the spirit of the original and add new depth, while others just repeat the same formula or just don't live up to the original.
It's tough to get it right? You have to honor the original, but also do something new and exciting. Speaking of films that spark debate, let's talk about Bull Durham. One user was really upset. It was only ranked 14th on the top 10's list. It seems like some movies just divide people. They get strong reactions, both good and bad. What do you think makes a sports movie so polarizing? Why do some films cause such heated debates while others seem to be universally loved?
I think it often comes down to personal preference, to what we connect with, in terms of the sport, the characters, the overall message of the film.
Sure.
What one person thinks is brilliant, another might find predictable or even offensive.
Yeah, I can see that.
Bull Durham, with its quirky minor league baseball setting and its exploration of love, loss, and dreams, might really click with some people while others just don't get it. And with a genre like sports movies where nostalgia and personal memories are so strong, those opinions can get pretty intense.
It's like these movies become a part of us.
Yeah.
We get invested in the characters, the teams, the results. And when a movie challenges our expectations or shows us a different perspective, it can trigger a strong reaction. Okay, let's move on to a film that seems to be almost universally loved. Hoosiers.
A classic.
This basketball drama is praised for its story, Gene Hackman's performance, and its classic underdog theme. We really seem to love these stories of overcoming adversity, don't we?
Yeah.
What is it about Hoosiers that makes it such a timeless film? Why does it still resonate with audiences today?
Hoosiers taps into this deep-seated belief in America, the idea that anyone can achieve anything with hard work, dedication, and a little bit of luck.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a small-town team beating the odds, taking on those big city teams, and proving that heart and determination can be more powerful than talent or privilege. It connects with anyone who's ever felt underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed.
Right.
And by setting it in the world of basketball, a sport that's so important in American culture, Hoosiers becomes more than just a game. It's a reflection of our own hopes and dreams, our desire to succeed against all odds.
It's like it embodies the American dream.
Absolutely. The idea that anyone, no matter where they come from or what their circumstances are, can achieve something great if they're willing to work hard and never give up.
And speaking of heartwarming stories, let's turn our attention to The Blind Side.
Yeah.
This movie is known for being emotionally powerful, for its moving portrayal of a young man overcoming huge challenges with the help of a loving family. But one commenter pointed out that the movie didn't stick to the facts completely, which brings up an interesting question. How important is accuracy in a feel-good sports movie based on a true story? Does a little bit of Hollywood magic ruin it? Or do we allow for some creative freedom to tell a good story?
That's a really tough question. How do we balance wanting a true story with wanting a movie that's entertaining and emotionally engaging?
Yeah, it's a tricky balance.
In The Blind Side, the filmmakers did change some things, simplifying events and maybe exaggerating some emotions for the sake of drama. But at its heart, the film still has a strong message about compassion, empathy, and human connection. And for a lot of people, that emotional impact is more important than whether every detail is completely accurate.
It's like we make a deal with the filmmakers, right?
Yeah. We know that these films, while inspired by real events, are still fictional stories designed to entertain and evoke feelings.
And sometimes that means changing timelines, simplifying things, or even combining characters to make the story flow better. Now for a blast from the past, let's talk about Space Jam. This basketball fantasy with Michael Jordan teaming up with Bugs Bunny and the whole Looney Tunes crew holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts, even if Jordan's acting isn't quite as good as his basketball skills. It seems like athletes becoming actors can be hit or miss, with some doing great and others, well, not so much. What do you think makes an athlete successful or unsuccessful in making that jump to acting?
It's definitely not easy. Being a good athlete and being a good actor are two very different things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Some athletes have that natural charisma and screen presence that works well in movies, while others just can't seem to play anyone other than themselves.
Right.
Michael Jordan in Space Jam is a perfect example.
Yeah.
He's obviously a basketball legend, but his acting feels stiff. It doesn't have the same energy he had on the court. But the film's charm lies in its pure craziness, its willingness to embrace the absurdity of NBA players teaming up with cartoons to save the world. And for many, the nostalgia factor makes up for any acting flaws.
It's a film that reminds us to not take ourselves too seriously and just have fun with the unexpected. And speaking of embracing the absurd, let's talk about Happy Gilmore. This Adam Sandler comedy, with its slapstick humor, crazy characters, and surprisingly heartwarming moments, continues to entertain people. One user even said they wanted more Sandler movies like this. What do you think makes a sports comedy work? Is it about finding the funny side of the sport itself, or is there something more to it?
Sports comedies often work because they make fun of the rules and traditions of the sport, highlighting the over-the-top personalities, the intense rivalries, and those sometimes ridiculous things that happen around the games.
Right, they poke fun at the whole thing.
Exactly. And Happy Gilmore does this perfectly. It imagines this world where a washed-up hockey player discovers he's amazing at golf, completely shaking up the serious world of professional golf with his crazy swing and bad boy attitude.
I love that movie.
The humor is both broad and specific, appealing to people who know golf and those who just want to see Adam Sandler being hilarious. And beneath all the silliness, there's a surprisingly sweet story about finding your passion, being yourself, and never giving up on your dreams even when everyone thinks they're crazy.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the greatest successes, both in sports and in life. Speaking of successes that go beyond just winning, let's talk about Brian's song. This one, as a user called it, is a real tearjerker. It tells the true story of the friendship between Brian Piccolo and Gale Sayers, two Chicago Bears players, a friendship that went beyond race and societal norms. It's a film that celebrates connection, finding strength in each other, and the power of love and compassion even when facing unimaginable loss. What do you think it is about Brian's song that continues to move people so many years later? Why does this story, with its themes of friendship, courage, and resilience, hold such a special place in our hearts?
Brian's song captures something really fundamental about being human. It's about connection, the importance of empathy and compassion, and the strength of the human spirit when things are tough.
Yeah, powerful story.
The film's portrayal of the friendship between Brian Piccolo and Gale Sayers, two men from different worlds brought together by their love of football, is both heartwarming and heartbreaking.
It really is.
Their connection breaks down racial and societal barriers, offering a message of hope and unity that resonates deeply. And by setting the story in the world of professional football, a sport known for its intense competition and physicality, Brian's song adds another layer of emotional depth. These men, rivals on the field, become like brothers off the field, supporting each other through good times and bad.
It's a beautiful story.
It's a story that reminds us that even in the most competitive environments, there's always space for compassion, understanding, and love, and that those connections can help us through even the darkest times.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most meaningful wins happen off the field, in those moments of shared joy, support, and unconditional love. Speaking of films that remind us to find the humor in life, let's switch gears to Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby.
Oh yeah, funny one.
This NASCAR comedy, with its crazy characters, ridiculous situations, and quotable lines, really shows the power of laughter, the joy of embracing the absurd, and the importance of not taking ourselves too seriously, even when things are intense. What do you think is the secret to making a good sports comedy? Is it about finding the funny side of the sport itself, or is there more to it? It's like they took NASCAR, with all its speed and intensity and just injected it with, like, pure comedic energy.
Absolutely. Over the top in the best way.
A total wild ride. It reminds you that sometimes you just got to laugh at life's crazy turns.
Oh.
Okay, but we're getting close to the finish line of our deep dive, and we have a few films that get a shout-out, but not a ton of discussion on the top 10s. Million Dollar Baby, Bloodsport, Friday Night Lights, and Slapshot. What do you think? Are any of these, like, hidden gems? Do they deserve more attention, maybe a higher spot in the sports movie rankings?
You've actually hit on a really interesting group of films here.
Oh, yeah.
They each offer something different, something beyond the typical underdog story. Million Dollar Baby, for example. It explores this complex relationship between a tough boxing trainer and a young woman who's determined to prove herself.
Sounds interesting.
It's about redemption, sacrifice, and finding connection in unexpected places.
Powerful stuff.
Then you have Bloodsport, which is pure martial arts action.
Oh, yeah, classic Van Damme.
Exactly. It really helps launch his career, and it still holds up with those over-the-top fight scenes.
Those are always fun. What about the others?
Well, Friday Night Lights takes us to small-town Texas, where high school football is everything. It's not just a game. It's the heart of the community.
Wow, it's like a way of life there.
And then there's Slapshot, which is hilarious and often pretty raunchy look at minor league hockey.
Yeah.
It's a world where, well, the sport is almost secondary to the spectacle.
Sounds chaotic.
It is, but it's also about celebrating those underdog players, the misfits, the guys who play just because they love it.
Even if it means breaking a few rules along the way.
So it sounds like there's something for everyone in this group. It just shows how diverse and interesting sports movies can be. But, this is just one perspective on a huge world of films. What about you? What are the sports movies that you love? The ones that make you cheer, laugh, maybe even cry a little?
It's a great question to think about.
Mm.
Everyone has their own favorites, the films that stick with them. What is it about those particular movies that makes them so special? Is it the thrill of victory, the heartbreak of defeat? Or maybe it's the friendships and bonds formed within a team, those stories of overcoming incredible odds.
It might be something even deeper, like a theme that resonated with you, a character you connected with, a single moment that stayed with you long after the movie ended.
Exactly. Those are the things that make a film truly memorable. As we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you to keep exploring the world of sports movies. Watch your old favorites, discover new ones, and talk about them with friends. Debate those sequels. Think about how real-world events have shaped these stories, and dig into those deeper meanings that lie beneath the surface. Because at their best, sports movies are more than just entertainment. They spark our imaginations, challenge us to think differently, and remind us of the incredible power of the human spirit.
So go out there, watch some great films, and keep those cinematic games going.